Sharpsburg, Franklin, LaGrange.
Wishing you a happy and healthy new year is your friends at Dairy Queen, 61 Jefferson Street here in Newman. They're also reminding you that they will be open on Christmas Eve for your convenience while you're shopping. Once again, happy holidays from your friends at Dairy Queen, 61
The
Jefferson
House
Street.
of Light brings clarity to your soul, offering a safe space for healing through our compassionate practitioners, services, classes, and wisdom, plus the tools to support you in our retail space.
When you hear music, do the lyrics speak to you on a deeper level? I'm Bruce Thornton. Join me and Donna Wood every Friday morning at 10:30 a.m. on WQEE 99.1 FM The Key for our show Lyrical Wisdom. Every week we will dive into the lyrics of songs and uncover hidden messages that we hope will leave you feeling inspired and enlightened. We know that our ideas may not always line up with yours, so this show will be an open discussion. Email us with ideas for songs at lyricalwisdomshow@gmail.com. That's lyricalwisdomshow@gmail.com. Let's share some wisdom together.
The views and opinions of this show and program are not the views and opinions of this station, its management, or its clientele. It's now time for the House of Light presents The Wisdom Cafe, each and every week at this time on 99.1 FM WQEE. Here's this week's special.
Is it recording? It didn't say anything, so I'm hoping we're recording. But you're recording, so if anything goes wrong.
Yeah, one of us will.
Yeah, it says it's recording. Okay, fabulous.
All right, great.
Hello, everybody. This is April Novoa with the Everything Considered podcast, and I am once again joined by Tim O'Davis. Love having him back. He always has some pretty impactful and just really deep insights for us, and I'm looking forward to hear him speak today and just kind of picking his brain a little bit about the subject. Tim, I'll go ahead and let you introduce the subject, and we'll get right in.
Okay, thanks, April. As you know, and your listeners will learn if they don't already know, I'm a 30-year resident at the Temple of the Universe here in Alachua, Florida, and that's the spiritual community, the ashram, that's run by Michael A. Singer, author of The Untethered Soul. And so for 33 years, my wife and I have been coming here, and 30 years we've been living on grounds. And on Saturday nights, we do a kind of an open community sharing, right, where we talk about what's going on in our lives and the different things that are, impacting our growth. And we had some visitors this week, and one of them was talking about how much pain they were experiencing, and it seems to be a common theme throughout, all of our lives, really, is that a lot of our growth and experience is accompanied by pain.
Yes.
And one of the things that we talked about is how the spiritual path is really defined in large degree by our ability to be open and accepting, to process that which hurts into a positive path. And so I just wanted to kind of to share about that and talk about that.
That's a very pivotal, very important subject that you brought up today. Nobody likes pain, but it's a reality. I guess the Buddha, he called it dukkha, right? Like, that's suffering.
Yes.
And there's different kinds of pain. There's physical pain, emotional pain. I guess there's mental pain. But it's all really the same thing, and it's just part of life. I think that's the hard part. Like, we spend so much time trying to avoid it.
It really is, and the fact is that pain is really a way that we have of interacting, with the reality of life. And the fact that something causes us pain is really, it's kind of a compass point to look at whatever that pain is coming from and to see it as a really high degree of attachment that we have to some aspect of our life or some condition that we think we need for happiness, or something that's a trauma, a past life trauma, or a trauma that we've experienced early in our lives, and that it's such a potent way to view where our path lies forward. So it's such a great way to view that. The Buddha said, "Our sorrows and wounds are healed only when we touch them with compassion," which I thought is a great way to kind of feel that, the physical sense of wounding and how we approach that. So I'm going to ask you a question.
Okay.
Have you recently or in the past had an example of a pain that seemed that provided with you with guidance, but only after you're able to look at it with sort of some deep spiritual growth, so with eyes of deep understanding and release?
Yes, very much. I guess all through my life, I've had instances of pain, and of course, there's some really big ones that stand out, losses that I've incurred. And you make a good point when you said that, because when you're in the midst of it, it's really difficult to sit with it and appreciate what it's teaching you. I think as I've gotten older, that's become more evident to me that, okay, this is, because I think what I used to do is really wrestle with it. But I'm thinking of one time in particular, I had an injury to my back, and I was down for probably 8 weeks. And there were times it was really excruciating. And it was at the end of that whole process that I was finally able to kind of, I guess, glean some wisdom from what it was showing me.
Yeah, physical pain and emotional pain, they are both strong indicators of something going on inside that we get to work with.
Yeah.
And I do work in the prisons, and one of the men that I work with is kind of having a similar experience to what you described, only it was more of an emotional pain. And he's done things that I don't know where the source of your pain is, but his pain is that he's done things that he's deeply ashamed of. And he was able to share with me how there was a trauma that early in his life sort of laid the foundation for his view of the world. And he has a strong need to control his world, right? And a strong need to kind of inflict his will upon the people around him in life. And that's come back to be a space of violence and anger. And he's been working really hard. Like, I can feel how hard he is to release that pain and to work with it. And I think the thing that perhaps is similar is that he can't see how much he's grown in that. And like how much he's released of that pain has helped him to get to a place where he's not acting out in violence, but yet on the deepest part of himself, he still feels anger and frustration and sort of the source of that pain. And it's hard to realize growth, like you said, while you're still in the middle of that and while you're still passing through it. Yeah. And having patience with yourself and having
what it's teaching you. I think as I've gotten older, that's become more evident to me that, okay, this is, because I think what I used to do is really wrestle with it. But I'm thinking of one time in particular, I had an injury to my back, and I was down for probably 8 weeks. And there were times it was really excruciating. And it was at the end of that whole process that I was finally able to kind of, I guess, glean some wisdom from what it was showing me.
Yeah, physical pain and emotional pain, they are both strong indicators of something going on inside that we get to work with.
Yeah.
And I do work in the prisons, and one of the men that I work with is kind of having a similar experience to what you described, only it was more of an emotional pain. And he's done things that I don't know where the source of your pain is, but his pain is that he's done things that he's deeply ashamed of. And he was able to share with me how there was a trauma that early in his life sort of laid the foundation for his view of the world. And he has a strong need to control his world, right? And a strong need to kind of inflict his will upon the people around him in life. And that's come back to be a space of violence and anger. And he's been working really hard. Like, I could feel how hard he is to release that pain and to work with it. And I think the thing that perhaps is similar is that he can't see how much he's grown in that. And like how much he's released of that pain has helped him to get to a place where he's not acting out in violence, but yet on the deepest part of himself, he still feels anger and frustration and sort of the source of that pain. And it's hard to realize growth, like you said, while you're still in the middle of that and while you're still passing through it. And having patience with yourself and having the ability to let go of shame and guilt and fear in the midst of pain is really the source of healing and the source of letting go all the trauma, that caused it in the first place.
Yes, I think looking back on it, I can see where my initial resistance, I was really fighting it, was actually making the pain more intense. And then there was a lot of fear because I had lost feeling in one of my legs, and I was, is that ever going to come back? And within a year it did. But at the time I didn't know. And so there was all this fear and there was this resistance and this struggle. And it seemed to, when I started to actually start to feel better, it kind of seemed to coincide with that acceptance of, okay, this is the situation. And, and there was a lot of like emotional, or I guess insights about how imbalance had contributed to my injuring my back, taking on too much, trying to bear too much and not feeling supported, but it was really me not supporting me,
It's the, and you can take that even deeper too, right? Like, why would you not allow yourself to be supported or to ask for support, or there's so many different directions you can take that.
Yes.
One of the beautiful things like about pain is that if properly processed and understood and accepted with the energy and the vibration that you just talked about, is that it's a release, right? And as you go deeper and deeper and you feel how much we hold and constrict pain as we try to control it in our hearts, we don't release it. So in Michael's book, The Untethered Soul, he talks about relax and release being like a way to deal with pain. And the experience that I've had with that is that as I feel pain, physical and emotional, mental, guilt, shame, whatever, I've had plenty of all those things. As I breathe and relax with it, it takes me to kind of a higher plane, and it relaxes the chakras. It relaxes like the valves that kind of hold it in my heart. And what went down with pain, like the things that caused me pain, like some of the stuff, relationships with my parents, my father, etc. When I were able to relax and release with those, whole segments of pain come up at once, and it doesn't have to be released. And sort of, if you will, incident by incident, wholesome scars, whole emotional blockages come out at once. And that's what hurts, right? Is that feeling of passing big blockages. So it's an incredibly efficient way to let go of your stuff, but at the same time, it's also painful. It has like the highest degree of pain. And the thing that I think has happened over 30 years of that is that I now see pain as a compass point. And as I'm working to release it and relaxing, I forgive myself for all the confusion, mental traffic, all the doubt and fear, sorrow that come up with it, and just accept it, right? Just to sit with it. And in that acceptance, large chunks pass, and I'm able to let go even more quickly and move past it. And I've even gotten to a point where sometimes I view it with a sense of optimism. Like, so when I feel pain, I'm actually have a positive emotional state around it, because I know that what's behind it is an incredible opening of energy. It's some scars being cleared out, the blockages being cleared out, and the chakras making room. And when people work on the Kundalini, right? When you breathe through the Kundalini, you breathe that breath of fire and you open that, that is a way to open that channel of energy. This is another way. And there's a real permanent gain from letting go of the blockages and doing this deep work. It's just being able to sit with it, sit during the sense of upheaval and the confusion, and just let it pass and trust that that's going to happen and that's going to work.
As you're talking about this, I love this quote, and I say it a lot. The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure that you seek. That's the Joseph Campbell quote. And it's and so much of the pain that I've had, both physically and mentally in my lifetime, is on the other end of it, there's just so much good information and so much healing. And it's like the pain's a vehicle for that, but the initial response is, I want this to go away. This hurts. I don't want to feel it. And we fight with it. And I wonder sometimes if there's a quicker way, to skip that part of it, or you just have to be compassionate with yourself as you experience that part of it.
There's a kind of a long held spiritual aphorism that you're never given more than you can handle. In any aspect of life, but pain seems to be one of the aspects that seems to fit most accurately.
Yeah.
And what I've experienced is, in my desperation, as I've pleaded for some kind of growth from some situation to get over something, that the accompanying pain is more sharp and more intense. And what I feel is that, like, the efficiency of that release, the quickness, like the bigger the chunks, like more that gets released at once, the more it hurts.
Yeah.
So it's being able to kind of sit with that and smile at it.
Mm-hmm.
And, there are a lot of teachers talk about resistance, right? That sort of surrender versus resistance,
Mm-hmm.
and surrender to a large degree doesn't mean you're giving up or giving away your power. It's actually taking back your power in a more deep and meaningful way. It's more like that alignment between your essential being, your true self, and your will, as opposed to just force or manipulation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in finding that power and releasing, you find more power, because you're not holding back the blockages that keep you from experiencing your own power. And in that surrender, in that opening, that's when that valve that feels like the place where we hold pain is open, and we surrender to it and we let it come up. And that's true strength, true power, the real, commitment to whatever it is we call God, however it is we view, the infinite nature, the Buddha nature, the Holy Spirit, Shakti, whatever, prana, whatever you want to call it.
Right. Right. Yeah. And that's kind of the initial thing, is to, beg and try to negotiate. I want reality to be what it was, and it's not that. But then you come to a space of like, okay, this is where I'm at. This is where I find myself, and I'm going to relax into this.
I was pulling up some quotes prior to our conversation. I've got one from Adyashanti that really rolls beautifully into what you just said. Spiritual growth involves giving up the stories of your past so the universe can write a new one.
Mm.
And,
Yes.
the old stories don't go away easy. We have some reason that those were important to us and that we were committed to them. And a lot of times the old stories support our concept of ourself, a way that we were conditioned to be from our old traumas, or whatever it was that led to self-limiting doubts. And in a lot of traditions, or a lot of spiritual teachers, call that your ego, right? That sort of concept of who you are, that limited concept. And so getting rid of that concept is like rewriting your operating system, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's going from sometimes being fear-based or shame-based or guilt-based into something that feels more infinite connection to energy. Right. And something that is working in optimism and from a true sense of altruism, a true sense of purity. And that transition from working away from fear and working towards a higher level of motivation, it's painful because you're giving up old ideas of who you used to be. And it's confusing because it's hard to trust yourself at first, like shame and guilt are kind of trusty companions for a lot of our path. And as we
Yeah.
let go of those and we try to work towards something higher, we're on a continuum of going from impure motivations and abilities and ways of operating to more pure ways and more higher ways of thinking of ourselves. And there's resistance to that because there's control in the old ways.
Mm-hmm.
And in that sense of moving from the impure to the pure, passing cat.
The Zen master.
That's right. There's a sense of releasing our old stuff, and it's really hard. That's where a lot of the pain comes in, is releasing the old sense of who we used to be and the ego.
I'm like picturing like fall. It's fall right now, and everything. The leaves are. My husband and I just spent hours this weekend trying to get the leaves up off the ground, and of course they're falling as we're doing it. And but I think about that, and I think about death and decay, how that's a necessary part of our life. That we die a lot of different deaths throughout life, and in that we let go of old stories and old versions of ourselves as we go forward. And there, I guess, to the ego, that's a frightening prospect. That this part of what I identify with, or who I identify with, is going to be gone. And but what's exciting is there's something new that's going to be born. But it is very difficult to let go of those old narratives, those old stories, and surrender and move and allow yourself to move into something new. And it's the unknown, right? Like I don't know what this new reality is going to be like if I surrender to this.
It's so true. And it's like we shouldn't want to know it, in some sense, of who we could become, because every bit of deep spiritual and religious teaching has that we are one with God, that we are infinite, and whether it's the quantum field or however we want to tap into that, we're really unlimited. Yeah. So when we let go of who we used to be, we're really reaching towards something that has no limit. To accept ourselves as we are and share that in an open way that expresses our uniqueness and who we are without having to meet somebody else's standards. Again, social media just is rife with presenting us with standards that we could never meet.
Yes.
So
yeah.
It is. We learn to accept and love ourselves, but yeah, that self-rejection is just, oh God, it's what a mess.
Yes. Yes. Yes, definitely. I don't want this. I don't want where I'm at right now. I don't want who I am right now. It's, the pushing away of the pain of the ideas the idea that things are not as they should be right now. But back to what you started with, pain being a gift, that it's there to show us and to teach us and to move us through probably even deeper pains we didn't even know or recognize were down in there. It's a catalyst. I mean, I know it was for me with that particular back issue, because I had an understanding when that was all over about myself and about ways I had been unloving to myself, ways I had refused other people's help, and, just different ways I was very unkind to me in that situation. And my body was screaming out that this had to change,
Yeah. Yeah. The Body Never Lies. I believe that's a title of a book that's popular right now, and it's really powerful.
It really is. Well, this is beautiful.
I have a poem that I think would make a great conclusion to this.
Wonderful.
So one of my favorite poets is Rumi. I'm sure you're familiar.
Yes.
So this poem, poets and artists have a way to take, what has been like half an hour of conversation for us in many, many words, and summing it up in like a piece of art that brings it home. So this is, with all the love and respect to Rumi and the other artists and poets, this is, this being human is a guest house. This being human is a guest house. Every morning, a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. Even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture, still treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whomever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond.
Yeah, you're right. That is amazing. Yes, that's beautiful. Thank you for that.
My pleasure. I love Rumi. And
Me too. Oh, that's awesome. You're right. Poets do have a way of putting things that really kind of drives the point home. And I thank you for sharing about this, because I think it's very timely. I think there are a lot of people going through a lot of things, and it's a good topic to address for sure. Now, you had some other things you wanted to share before we.
Yeah. So my website is timodavis.com. If anybody wants to email me, it's tim@timodavis.com. And I'm doing a class, a reading class on the untethered soul. And basically we go a section at a time with a few extra sections. It'll be about an 8-week class, but we've got a quorum started with people who are interested in kind of walking through the book. And I've lived at the temple for 30 years. And I've heard, the book was written as a transcription of Michael A. Singer's Mickey's talks. So I was present at the creation of those talks. I've been sitting with those for quite a long time. So I feel qualified and I love to talk about them. And so we'll be starting a class soon. I'm just looking for some other people to fill in a few gaps. So you can reach out at timodavis.com and track me down.
That's very exciting. I'm going to put all that in the show notes, Tim, so they can just click on there and find you. That's really great. So check him out. He's got all kinds of great offerings on his website and many things that he does. We haven't even touched on in this particular episode. I think we did in the first one, but we haven't so much in this episode. Tim?
The House of Light brings clarity to your soul, offering a safe space for healing through our compassionate practitioners, services, classes, and wisdom, plus the tools to support you in our retail space.
You've been listening to the House of Light presents the Wisdom Cafe on 99.1 FM WQEE. The House of Light, a wellness center at 29 Jackson Street here in Newnan, is a place for people to relax and find true healing. For additional information, 407-414-6711. Remember to tune in next week for another healing message from the House of Light presents the Wisdom Cafe right here on 99.1 FM WQEE.